Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Expert to Authority show. And today is all about content creation. How do we create outrageously compelling, effective, and easy long-term content? And I'm really excited to have our guest with us today, which is a podcaster, speaker, PhD, and founder of both the Podcast Host and Alitu, the podcast maker. The podcasthost.com is a huge audio, video, and written resources on creating a successful show, while alitu.com is a web app that helps anyone to make a podcast really easy by polishing, branding, and publishing your show. So, Colin, welcome. It's good to see you here. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, doing good today. How about yourself?
I'm doing incredibly well. First of all, before we talk about how to create incredible long-term content, which is definitely a topic that all our listeners and myself included are interested in, I want to know how did you get started with your passion about content creation that also led you to create the Podcast Host and Alitu.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was an educator back in the day, about 12, 13 years ago now. Yeah, 2006, 2007, I worked at a university teaching lecturers how to be better at teaching, essentially, kind of meta, but it was particularly with tech. So how to use technology to teach. And one of the fancy new technologies at the time was podcasting, of course, back in 2007. It wasn't super new at that point. It was a few years old, but still not many people had heard of it. And my boss came to me and said, so I've found this new thing called podcasting. It's all about audio. Can you look into it? Find out what it's all about. And I said, yes. And that was really the start of the whole story. I just kind of fell in love with the medium at that point. I just loved the mix of personality, of in-depth content, of that feeling of one-to-one content, when you hear them just in your ears, when you're listening to a podcast, I think it's the medium where you feel like you know the people the best because it's just more honest and open than many other mediums. I don't know. Do you find that as well?
I definitely found it as well.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a potential client a few days ago, and he said, "Oh, I feel like I'm listening to your voice when I'm reading your post because I've listened to too much of your podcast."
Yes.
And when I received that message, I thought, this is the most brilliant piece of feedback that I can receive about my show, because that's how we do it, to connect with our audiences and to get them to know us, and vice versa. And how was it for you, the first step into podcasting? Because that's how you started looking into it. And I got to say that actually, I started podcasting, was that like 5 years ago? So it was still a very new industry. There were definitely not as many podcasters there are now. So how was for you when you started out?
Oh, it was a different thing entirely back in 2008 or so when I first created that show. The first show I created was kind of the precursor to Podcraft, which is the show we run now to help people make a podcast. And it was built as a 10 episode season to teach lecturers how to start a show. So it was 10 short episodes, 5 to 10 minutes long, each one covering a really specific aspect of how to start a podcast. And I had to teach people how to subscribe, download, listen to this show back when it was like in the iTunes app on your computer, and you had to actually plug in your MP3 player and copy the files from one to the other. It was just terrible. It was an awful experience. So I suppose it's a mark of how compelling podcast content is that people put up with that in the first 5 years or so of it, before it was just on your phone and before it automatically updated. So yeah, it's changed a lot since I started.
And now that let's say, I would love to ask you, because you have a very particular insight in the podcasting industry. You can see it from a producer of podcast, from a guest of podcast like you're now, also having a podcast app. So you can see from all the different angles. What are the things that are working right now in the podcasting world? Let's start from there.
Oh, I mean, I think the thing that's working the most right now is just the fact it's the enablement of podcasters. It's how simple it is to create a show these days. Like it's never been easier to make a podcast just through the software that's available, the tools that are available, the education that's available around how to make good content. And the fact that it ties into so many other platforms as well. Like we just had Twitter a couple of weeks ago, YouTube a few weeks ago announce these massive upgrades to their platforms to include podcasting too. So not only is it easier to make podcasts now, so much easier than ever was, but it's easier to get them out there too. And actually they integrate so much more with every other platform too. So I think that can only help us get our shows found and kind of integrate it with all of our content as opposed to just audio.
Yeah, definitely. I remember when I started, it definitely wasn't as easy. Still, 5 years ago, it was pretty straightforward. It wasn't too complex, but right now it is press, record, and distribute. And definitely you can do it from one platform. And that's it. You're doing everything in one place.
Indeed. And it's even the gear as well, actually. Like the fact that the software has come along so much. But I was at Podcast Movement last week, a couple of weeks ago, which was one of the biggest podcasting events in the world. And all of the equipment manufacturers were there. Like, what mic do you use yourself?
Oh, actually, this one is is a microphone called Fifine. Is a 20. So listen, is this 20 pound $25 microphone that my wife found because I used to have the Rode Podcaster and I still have it, but the setup of the Rode Podcaster is like this huge long dildo shape, and it didn't look that well on camera when I was speaking on it, and also putting it up and putting it down every single time became a bit of a hassle. And my wife found this random microphone on Amazon, which actually records. I looked at the difference between the Rode Podcaster and this one. And if you have a trained ear for microphones, you can hear the difference. But if you don't, if you're like not a sound technician, it's a good microphone. So
well, that's a really cool example of that, because all I was going to say was that every single manufacturer now has brought out, from Rode, including Rode, they were there. You've got Shure, you've got like Focusrite, you've got all these places that are making all of this gear actually now specifically for podcasters and designed to make it so easy to record audio into a computer and at a really good quality too. So you've got mics like, I mean, I know a lot about mics. I've written about mics for years, but I've never even heard of that make. That just shows you, like, there's so many new ones coming out, so many new brands coming out.
My little big boy here. How about you? Which one do you use?
At the office, actually, the Rode Podcaster. I do like it. Funny shape or not.
It's a good one. It's a great quality. Absolutely. I know one of the biggest problems though for podcasters is getting your audience engaged. That's one of the biggest thing. So once you start and maybe you have your first 10 shows under your belt, and maybe if you already have an audience or people are following you, they are listening to the first few episodes, and then only your virtual assistant who's editing them then is the only one listening. That's for the unfortunate story of many podcasters. And I know you have an interesting take on engagement and how to get your audience engaged, and I would love to expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, well, it kind of came from back in my education days, the whole idea of getting into seasons, really, more than anything else, like that way of engaging with people through actually designing your content in a bigger, more kind of holistic way, but equally more detailed and more broken down as well. And you do that by creating a series of content rather than going into, one topic in depth in one episode. I feel like one of the biggest mistakes I often hear podcasters make is try and fit too much into an episode and take one topic that's a really big interest area for your audience and actually just covering it over 30 minutes or an hour and not giving enough detail. And kind of it's almost like, wasting that topic by just spending one episode on it. People want to hear so much about that topic, so why not break it down? So that's kind of the big picture. Is I think there's so much more engagement that you can create through thinking about your podcast in terms of seasons. And actually there's a whole lot of benefits for the podcaster as well, like you as the podcaster, you as the creator. So what area do you want to dive into first? Like which side of it should we go into?
Let's start from the podcaster side.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I think there's a few things that it makes it easier. First of all, planning. Like, so do you plan your episodes every week? Do you have a plan ahead of time? Like, how do you go about your planning?
Listen, you're talking to the most disorganized person on the planet. I
Okay.
I need people that are great at planning around me. That's how I
Yes.
operate.
Yes.
So thanks
Yes.
God I have a great assistant who's very organized
Yeah.
and someone. So at the moment like I don't do any planning with the show, and I've been not doing any planning for 5 years. It was
Mhm.
like guests come in and we interview them, and then when I want to talk about something, I'll do a solo episode and I talk
Mhm.
about it. So
Yeah.
that's why I've never explored the idea of season, which then of course that comes with planning. And I'm
Yeah.
and I want to hear more from you, because definitely you know more than that than me on this.
Perfect. So absolutely, that's a great example actually, because that's how most people, that's like the majority of people podcast. They turn up on the Monday morning, they think, right, I've got to make a podcast episode this week. Oh no, what am I going to talk about? And then there's a big stress, and then they have to take a while to. And quite often that kind of kills a show actually, because people struggle to come up with an idea every single week. It feels like it's an effort, it's a stress to make up that show. Whereas with seasons, what it does with the planning is that you just take your topics. So, what is for example, what's one of the biggest questions that people ask you on your podcast? Like, what's one of the biggest questions your audience ask? Like the most common
How
first
do I get
question.
new clients?
Perfect. Yeah. So, how do I get a new client? So, you take that question, the most common first question that people ask you, and you think, right, how does this break down? If I was going to create a course on this,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 5 to 10 lessons, how would I break that down? So, what would be your first couple of topics?
One is uh, looking at repurposing one of your offers. That
Okay,
could be one.
perfect.
Low
Yeah, yeah,
hanging fruit,
yeah,
repurposing one of your offers.
absolutely.
Second
Yeah,
one could be going around and ask your existing clients for introductions.
yeah,
Then
perfect.
we can
Okay, so
going out setting up the webinars. So
yeah, ideal. Yeah, so there you go. So as soon as you think of that topic, like you could create an episode just on that, like how to get more clients, and you could then like spend 5 minutes on each of those little areas. But actually you've probably got 10, 15, 20 of
yeah,
those that could go into that question that you could then take as a season and think, right, what's the season? And you start bullet pointing them out. So you can have like, like I said, you can have 10, 15, even up to 20 in a season. And then that's you over, 20 minutes. That's generally how long it takes me to sit down, break down a topic into its component parts. In 20 minutes, you can have a plan for the next 3, 4 months worth of content for yourself. And then if you spend another 20 minutes just putting a wee bit of meat on those bones, like do some
yeah,
little bullet points inside those, maybe 5 to 10 inside each of those. So the getting referrals from your customers one, maybe you'll just do 4, 5, 6, 7 bullet points in there that just guides you through it. I can do that. A topic that you know well, I'm sure as well. You can do that in half an hour. And then suddenly that means that you've got a plan for the next 3, 4 months worth of content. So there's a few things that means. First of all, it means that every single week you can just turn up. There's no stressing about topics or anything like that. You can just open this plan up and you know exactly what you're going to talk about. And the other thing, obviously, is batch processing as well. Like it means that each month you could maybe record 3, 4 of those at a time. And actually, it means that
yeah,
you're not then on that treadmill of having to make up that content every single week. It also means if you're an interview show like we're doing here, you can actually start to then plan ahead and pick out some experts to fit this. You do a search on one of the topics within that big
mm,
topic. You find somebody that's got an interesting point of view on that, and then you actually contact them and you bring them in, and you can plan ahead and actually get a whole set of guests that have really unique views and really unique kind of takes on each of these
yeah.
elements.
Because my question. Because
Yeah.
one thing is if you do have a solo podcast, where it's easier to plan it on your own, where you say, okay, this is the topic, the macro topic that I want to
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about.
Yes.
These are the smaller topics that I
Yeah.
can, the different parts.
Yep. Yep. I think it's even more, it does work well for a solo show or a co hosted show where there's two of you together. You can plan out a season together. But I think it's actually even more effective in an interview show, because the downfall of many an interview show is that the guest comes on and it's more about the guest than the topic. The guest comes on and tells a bit of their story and then kind of covers, the person who's the interviewee just asks a few questions, and it can go around some good topics, but often it's a little bit rambly. Maybe it doesn't have that much focus. And also each interview, one episode to the next, there's no link. There's no kind of tying them together. There's no progress. It's topic A, then topic Z, then topic B, then topic L, or whatever. It's just jumping about all over the place from beginner to advanced and all over. Whereas if you have a plan, which is, it goes from A to B to C to D instead. You go through the topic from episode to episode to episode. That builds engagement so well because you're actually linking the episodes. It's actually a really good reason to listen to every single episode instead of skipping them. And it's all about really focused problems and really focused solutions to those problems.
So, and what is the ideal length of a season? Is there any ideal length, or is it how long is a piece of string? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a bit of a how long is a piece of string. I think it depends entirely on the content. I think you should go through the plan. You should think about the topics, the subtopics within that main question. And you should plan it out in sensible sections. I often think about it in terms of months. So, you've got a 1 month season is quite short. It's only 4 episodes. A 2 month season is about 8. A 3 month season would be 12. If you're thinking weekly, I find 2 months is quite a good period. Actually, it keeps people engaged for quite a long time, 2 months over one topic, but it's not too long. It's not going 3-4 months. So I often aim for somewhere around 8 to 10 sort of thing.
Can you give an example of a season that you've done, maybe recently or a while ago, that so then someone who is listening can see also go through your thought process?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the biggest questions we get is about equipment. What is the podcast? What equipment do I need to make a podcast? One of the biggest questions we get. So I took that and I broke that down into what microphone do I need? And then what recording device do I need? And what software do I need for recording? What software do I need for editing? What platform do I need for publishing? So there's just 5 parts of that. And there's a few other elements about equipment. We had an accessories one as well. And that one went about 8 episodes, that one. So that's how I broke that down. It's just down to the elements of it. Equally, though, we did a how to start a podcast one as well. So I talked about Podcraft earlier on. The first series of that was how to start a podcast. Mm-hmm. So first episode was, so that's one of the biggest questions too, how to start a podcast. So first one was how to plan your in fact, no, first one was who is your podcast for? And then it was what is your podcast for? And then I believe it was what problem and solution. What problem are you solving? What solution are you doing for that? And why are you unique? And then we got into equipment, and then we got into hosting, and then we got into recording skills. So, you break it down into those elements of how you solve that larger question. And they are what become your episode.
I really like it. So it's very simple. It's very simple. You have the topic, and then you think about what smaller topic you can talk about that complete that particular conversation. Now, but I have a question now, which might be a bit controversial and and might not be in favor actually of seasonal work. I come from a conversion point of view. I come from the point of view of I'm doing my podcast to build a relationship with my audience. Like a lot of people, they want to sell some products or services. Very few, as you know, in the podcasting industry end up making like a huge show with brand deals and with the advertisement and so on. The majority, they will use it to build their loyal audience as a way to keep in touch with their customers, to attract new customers, for people to share content and so on. And one of the things that works in the online course space is that if I want to sell a course, is an organized version of unorganized information that I have online. So I can give you away all the free things that I know, but you would have to put so much work to organize them in order that you rather buy my course and pay for it. Now, with the season, you're actually giving people a structure process to follow. So how do you combine seasons with online sales to make sure that it doesn't kill your conversion? That people say, well, I don't need to buy anything that you offer because I got all the season and everything is already organized. So why should I pay you?
It's a good question. Very good question. I mean, we still sell a lot of courses as well on top of what we do. And I think people come in and buy our courses because we add a lot more of the how to. So our seasons tell a lot about, what you can do to solve a problem, some ways to solve it, but our videos are then in the course, and that actually shows you exactly how to do it and guides you through it. I also find that something we add to our courses on top of the seasons-based one is the tasks. It's actually a tick box of things to do. Here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. And we don't necessarily actually walk people through every single one of those steps in detail on the podcast. I don't know if that works very well in audio. I feel like they need the written material to guide them through that. So I think that's how I see it. I see the audio as telling a story. It tells the story. It tells here's what you can do. It gives you a bit of a guide around how to go about it. But really, to get the detail, the guide, to handhold you through it, that's when you go to the course itself. And I think that you're absolutely right. It could take away some of the benefits of the course because it's the organized version. But I think that the engagement benefits of something like seasons more than makes up for that. The fact that you have people that just follow you through every single episode, the fact that you enable so much more success and so much more action because you're guiding people through step by step in a directed and a focused way, you're making people so much more loyal. You're making people so much more engaged with your work that when you do sell something, even if there's a little bit less benefit because it's already a bit organized, it still makes them want to take part in it because of that value you've given them and because of that loyalty you've built, I believe.
Oh, I like it. You know what? I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to give it a go. That's what I love also interviewing and guests, because it gets me to think about things that I would not normally do or having a different point of view. And I would have not probably organized and structured the season, but I've already one that I can run on how to create a high converting offer. And I've got 7 episodes for it, and I can run and give it a go. And then I'll then I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, that'd be excellent. I'd love to hear. I mean, you might find the 2 other things that I often talk about with seasons that you might find if you give it a shot, and I'd love to hear how you find this too, is one is that it lets you take a break really easily. So actually, it's a much better excuse for at the end of that, say, 3-month season, you say, right, we're taking 4 weeks off and we'll be back on blah, blah, blah. We'll be back on this date. You barely, like all the experiments that I've run around this, all of the other experience I've heard, you don't lose listeners through this as long as you communicate it well. As long as they know when you're coming back, it's all good. But the benefit of this is more engagement. We're talking about engaging listeners, engaging your audience here. A wonderful thing that works really well during that break is if you end the season and you say one of a couple of things. You say, right, season's finished. We're going to start again on August the 20th. What do you want us to cover? We're going to be away for 4 weeks. We're going to run a survey over those whole 4 weeks. We might even offer a prize or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And then they become in charge of the creation of the next season.
Exactly. They tell you. And if they're in charge of it, if they feel ownership over it, they're so much more likely to engage with that next season, enjoy it, get the right content. And it's brilliant. And even one more thing you can do as well is you can even ask them to feedback into it. So you get their feedback on what they want to cover, but get them to leave you some messages, get them to send you some audio clips, and then actually help you create that content too, include their questions. And when you have that break, you have that 4-week break, 6-week break, 8-week break, whatever it is, you can batch sort of getting in that content, dealing with that content and doing something with it to start the next season, to make the next season higher quality, more involved with the listeners, get more of their stuff in there and really engage them that second time.
I have many clients who are running their own shows. So really? I'm definitely going to forward them this interview as soon as we publish it. Because it is a great and simple way as well to organize your podcast, to take your listeners through a journey, but not with a kind of organization and structure that will trap someone like me. Because I need structure in my life, but at the same time, I don't want to be trapped by it. And this way, I feel like it gives structure to you and the audience, so then they know what to expect, but also gives you the freedom to change topic, to move from a guest interview to a solo episode, which is what for creators is that freedom and that flexibility to be able to express themselves and create. No, Colin, it has been a great interview. Absolutely love it. I know there are definitely people here that are watching or listening. Say, okay, I need to know more about what Colin has to offer. I would love to know more about what's available. So over to you, man.
Oh yeah, thank you. I mean, yeah, if anyone wants to start a podcast, we've got our first point is our how to start guide. It's a big, massive guide on our blog. So just go over to thepodcasthost.com/start, and that's a full free guide. It'll take you through the whole thing. And if they want an easy way to make it, it would be excellent if they tried out our, you go and have a look at our podcast maker app, Alitu, as well. It's over at alitu.com, ALITU.com, and it's got a 7-day free trial.
All right. All the links are in the show notes or in the description as well. So make sure you scroll down, check it out. Like even before you stop this episode, just go click the link, look at the podcast guide, and also look at Alitu for a podcast maker app. Colin, if we were to wrap up with a final message, this interview, what would your final message be?
I think it's all about keeping it simple. Like I said at the start, like don't overcomplicate things. Make your first 10 episodes super simple by simple gear, just that USB mic we were talking about earlier. Make the planning simple by using seasons to, plan out a season, just commit to 10 episodes, like a first 10 episode season, for example. And to keep the editing simple as well, actually. Like use a tool like Alitu, for example, to do all your audio cleanup and all that kind of stuff. Make it really simple to put it together and don't edit out your ums and ahs and all that kind of thing. So yeah, just keep it super simple. First 10 episodes until you get right into the swing of things.
All right. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Colin, thank you very much once again for an incredible interview. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching and listening. And I cannot wait to see you in the next episode. And always remember that together we grow exponentially. Ciao.